Morning, everyone. Morning. Welcome. It's good to see you all. We've got some new faces with us this morning, so if it's all right with everyone, if I go live and we do our introductions, you just say your name and who you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not clear about the process, just put your hands up. We'll give you advice, etc. If you're not clear about the issues, again, raise your hands up. We'll help you. Welcome those of you on Teams. Usual thing, if you get cut off or you have problems with IT, if you're speaking, we'll wait a few minutes for you to reconnect. If you still can't reconnect, we'll carry on with the business, and then if you come back online, I'll come back to you. If you're not speaking and you get disconnected, just come back when you're ready, and you're welcome to. We won't see it as a disruption to the meeting. Okay, I'm Mike Thomas, I'm Chair of the Trust. Morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Paul Jones, Company Secretary.
I'm Hugh Reeve, and I'm Non-Executive Director, and I'm never clear about process.
Morning, I'm Sarah Rees. I'm Non-Executive Director appointed by Lancaster University. I am Alison Cole. I'm one of the new Associate Non-Exec Directors.
Morning, everyone. I'm Adrian Leather. I'm one of the non-executives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ali Bolton, Chief People Officer. Jane McNicholas, Chief Medic Officer.
Hello, my name is Richard Sachs. I'm the Director of Governance.
Hi, I'm Nick Long, the Board Administrator.
Hi, I'm Melissa Young. I'm Business Support Assistant.
Hello, I'm Liz Sedgley. I'm one of the Non-Exec Directors.
Morning, I'm Lorraine Ann Crossler-Close and I'm a Head Governor at the moment.
Morning, Scott McLean, Chief Operating Officer.
Morning, everyone. I'm Tony Oakman, new non-exec director, first board member.
Hi, Chris Adcock. I'm Chief Financial Officer.
Hi, my name is Liv Wyatt and I'm the Deputy Chief Nurse.
Morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Down, one of the Chief Nurse.
Hello, my name is Aaron Cummins. I'm Chief Executive here at the Trust.
And then I'll probably ask Aaron to support me here as I come through those on team. I'll call your names out. Karen.
Morning, everyone. My name's Karen Deeney. I'm one of the non-exec directors.
Morning. Sakti.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sakti Karunanithy. I'm an advisor to the board.
Morning, Barry.
Morning, good morning. My name is Buddy Rick, Head of Patient Experience.
Morning, welcome. Carrie Cobb. Are you there, Carrie? Okay, we may have lost the connection. Anybody else there? The members of the board that I've missed? No? Okay, Melissa, just check if I missed anyone.
Annette Shepherd's on there.
Oh, welcome, Annette. Just say who you are.
Morning, I'm Annette Shepherd. I'm Patient Experience Lead.
Good to see you. Okay, colleagues, you're happy if we commence with the meeting? Okay. Any apologies?
No, I think it's full house today.
Brilliant. Any declarations of conflicts of interest?
Thanks, Mike. I'm still currently the Deputy Director of Nursing at NHS England.
Thank you. Okay. Any other declaration? No. Okay. Minutes of the Board of Directors held on the 29th of March. Do you wish to approve the minutes? Yeah. Thank you. And then action sheets.
Thanks, Mike. The patient experience strategy is on the agenda today, but there was a follow-up action that Lynn is going to report on relating to mandatory training for autism. There's an update on that one.
Yes, so this is related to the Paul McGowan autism training, which is nationally recommended programme. We are seriously considering adopting that training, but our trust firewall currently prevents us doing that. So we'll continue with the training, the LD and autism training we've got online, which is also mandatory. And then as soon as we can sort that firewall, we'll introduce that.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to matters for consideration. We've got item 4, the patient story. Lenny, you introduce it.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'll introduce this and then hand over to Annette and Barry. So I'm really excited to bring the revised patient strategy to the board today. It's been reviewed at the patient experience group. We've got quite a bit of feedback from there, and also the quality assurance committee. So I'm going to hand over to Barry and Annette, who are going to just share some of the involvement in actually developing that patient experience strategy. So over to you, Barry and Annette.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Chair. So good morning. With me today is Annette Shepherd. Annette's already introduced herself. Annette's our patient experience lead. And joining us today with Annette is Kerry Booth. Kerry Booth is our assistant librarian, and Kerry has been instrumental in getting our new strategy over the line. By this, we mean that Kerry takes the strategy and has taken the strategy on tour with citizens and colleagues, and he will be part of the team to develop the operational delivery plan. So today we hear from several patients, carers and citizens who have helped develop this new strategy, and you can view the strategy within your board pack starting on page 175. So through stakeholder engagement, we've heard that the approach should be that all colleagues recognise the importance of patient experience, and all colleagues are involved in the delivery of creating a great place to be cared for. So this strategy is an enabling strategy to help deliver the clinical strategy and focuses on colleagues, patients, their families and carers as a partner in the health and care journey. So the strategy has 4 strategic priorities. So strategic priority number 1 is to create that positive patient experience. Priority number 2 is to create a culture where carers are made to feel welcome. Priority number 3 is to volunteer with us with a clear focus on a recovery to bring back any volunteers following the COVID pandemic. And our priority number 4 is to involve and include me. So what we mean by this is that we'll undertake meaningful engagement and involve patients and families in their health and care. And this includes open and honest involvement when things may not go quite right for the patient and their family. So we've got a number of stories to share with you today. So the first story you'll hear from Deborah. So as you probably would expect and will be aware, the strategy has been developed alongside other health and care partners within our ICS, our integrated care system. And it's important for our patients and citizens that they have a belonging with a multiple number of health and care organisations. And this is particularly important for us, but also the citizens when we undertake meaningful community engagement. So we're thinking here where the citizen tells the NHS once and we all listen and act. So our patient experience team has been instrumental in supporting national and regional colleagues with the review of PIFU Patient Initiated Follow-up Programme. So we'll now hear from Deborah, who has a long-term health condition, and the health condition is managed through the PIFU programme.
The patient-initiated follow-up pathway. So I was diagnosed with a long-term condition called ankylosing spondylitis about 5, 6, 7 years ago now. Most people don't understand it or have never heard of it. So the best way I try to describe it to people is kind of a form of arthritis. I experience pains in all of my joints, but predominantly my back, my knees and my ankles, but everybody is different. And your bones can fuse together, so it can make movement really difficult and really tricky. Previous to being on the patient-initiated follow-up, the way it worked for me was regular appointments. So I take a lot of medication, so they involve 2 weekly blood tests. So I go down previously to the hospital, and then eventually that changed going to my local GP. And then in addition to that, initially it started off monthly appointments with my consultant, and then that changed to 2 monthly and then eventually to 6 monthly appointments. Since I've been put on the PIFU pathway, so that patient-initiated follow-up, there's been loads of benefits for me. So I think one of the big things that everybody would see ultimately is just the fact that it's a lot quicker, it's more convenient for me. I don't any longer have to take time to work. I don't have to go and drive anywhere. I think also for me, because of my type of condition, especially where I was saying like I have the flares, the fact that I initiate the conversation, so I don't feel anymore that I'm going to an appointment to literally sit there and be like, yeah, everything's absolutely fine, and feel like I've wasted my time, their time. Know that the help and support is there. It's not that I'm on this pathway and I don't get it. It's actually, it's much more personalised and structured to me and when I need it.
So the clip is actually accredited to the East Lancashire NHS Trust, and our trust, working in partnership regionally and nationally with the PIFU programme, has helped develop this particular clip, but also helped review the PIFU pathway for our patients, of which it's an instrumental part of our business moving forward. So we'll now hear from Paige. Paige has recently accessed our maternity services. And throughout this clip, you can expect to hear clear examples that grandparents were made to feel welcome during the birth. And this is really important to us. When we were working with Paige, it was clear that our strategic priority number 2 within the strategy was to ensure that family and carers were involved in the health and care journey at whatever stage that patient required that. Paige also will share clear messages of the importance of including and involving family members. We'll hear Paige talk about the words or use words as example, kindness, caring, and the importance of colleagues introducing themselves. And these are all core objectives within our strategic priority number 1, where we go that extra mile to create that positive patient experience.
You would not have known that we were in a hospital. If you had taken the context away, it felt like we were at home. They really left us just to be among ourselves with family. Every choice that we could make, you know, they were putting us in the driver's seat with that. And yeah, I mean, her birth was exactly as we would have had it, even though that's not remotely the way we had planned to have it. I did have a complication after her birth. I had what we call a massive postpartum hemorrhage, which is anything over about a half a liter. Mine was about 3 liters of blood loss, just under. And, you know, that could have been a really traumatic experience, I think, for anybody to have your new baby born and then within the hour be in a life-threatening situation where, yeah, I mean, it's just scary to have that happen and to see the looks on the faces of the people around you who you love, who are clearly concerned for you and you trust them. So you know that something is definitely wrong. The midwives who delivered our baby were phenomenal. I mean, they were just very calm, very in control, you know, locked in eye contact with me the whole time and making me feel that, you know, even though something was wrong, it was going to be fine. You know, when they pushed the emergency buzzer to get everybody in the room, they told me what was going to happen before that it did. So it really wasn't as alarming as it could have been. The whole emergency team was, yeah, very communicative. Everybody introduced themselves, which like doesn't take much to do that. And it made such a big difference and did take some of the urgency off of it for me. Yeah, they were just very, very calm, very in control, very respectful, very, very, very kind. And it seemed really aware of the fact that this wasn't anybody's plan, but that it could still be a good experience, even as a bad experience. Yeah, they really went above and beyond to make it a good experience for me and for my husband and for my baby and for our moms who were there. Just can't say enough about how well I remember it, given everything that had happened. So just huge thanks to the midwives, huge thanks to the theater team, to the maternity team up on the ward. So yeah, that's kind of our story and Mia's birth.
And then finally, our last slide includes some familiar faces that you may recognise. So you'll hear from a group of young people who wanted to share their pledges and seek your commitment in the delivery of our new 5-year patient care and volunteer involvement strategy. So first of all, apologies, the sound might not be great on this recording. However, we have provided subtitles.
Harry, if I just interrupt there, I hope you can hear me. We couldn't hear that, and I think a lot will read the subtitles, but I will have it in the minutes if that's okay, and we will keep it as a recording for people who want to check the board meeting today. And you know, we take on board some of the technical difficulties, but I think just looking around colleagues in the room, we got the main messages there, which was really a way of introducing that aspect of your strategy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just to finish before, if anybody's got any questions, this will link, will link with the wider strategy about patient engagement, so meaningful patient experience and engagement, which is part of the chief nurse's objectives, and working with Billwood, we've already started that piece of work.
Brilliant.
Whether anybody's got any questions.
Yeah, I'll just see around the room. Anybody got any questions?
Thanks, Annette and Kerry and Barry. So this is a really important piece of work for us. Our trust strategy about putting patients first, being quality and safety driven, being clinically led. So I'm really pleased to start to see kind of the jigsaw pieces start to build around that intent that we've set out as part of the strategic direction. I've got a question about whether this is the strategy or there's another area of development. Part of having patients, carers, communities and their families involved in health and care, I understand the connection around their own care and their own experience and using that to reflect and give feedback and being open and honest. But our ambition is also to have those same groups of people absolutely inform our clinical strategy developments, the way that services develop in the future, much broader than their own individual experiences of care. And is that a core component? I didn't hear that play out too much in the strategic objectives.
Lynn, would you like me to take the question?
I mean, I'm happy. I have talked about, so this is a strategy for patient experience, but it doesn't really go far enough for me around that meaningful co-production, patient engagement, which is what I was trying to sort of gently say at the beginning. So I think this is the moment in time, and it's a good start, and it's a good baseline for a patient experience strategy, but it probably needs to be much broader around engagement.
So when and where will we see that intent from our strategy start to develop? So I'm thinking specifically with Jane's work that she's doing with each of the care groups on
taking the clinical strategy to life. I'd expect to see patients, carers, communities in those work streams to help design the services of the future. Is that where I would see that?
Yeah, so it happens in small pockets now, but it's not something that we do as a matter of course. So, I mean, I work with Tabitha to sort of make sure we've got some time on this.
Just following the chief exec, sorry, sir. Will there be a governance process of this as well? Will it go through which subcommittee, etc.?
So at the moment it goes through the patient experience group, but the wider engagement strategy probably needs to it does go to policy committee from the patient experience group.
Actually, Sarah.
Actually, so
Thank you. Hey, Karen.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Just a couple of points, really. One of which I know we raised at the Quality Assurance Committee, and it also speaks to Lynn's earlier comments, is think it could really benefit from a very strong and explicit focus on co-creation as a distinct from creation. And particularly, I'd really just welcome some assurance about a really inclusive approach to engagement. So whilst it's great to see the youth forum there, I'm left wondering, so how are we engaging older people in this? And both patients who spoke were women in a kind of relative particular age range. So I'm thinking younger women, older women, also men. Where are men engaging in this story, and also thinking about how are we engaging with some of our different ethnic groups or people for whom English isn't their first language. So for me, it's what's the inclusion strategy, making sure that we're capturing all appropriate protected groups with different protected characteristics in the work. So it's really comprehensive with a focus on co-creation. Thank you.
So it's really difficult, Karen, to include all of that inclusion and diversity elements in the presentation today. I think it was an approach to bring the strategy here. We do a lot of that work, and I'll go back to, we do it in pockets. So we do quite a lot of engagement with ethnic minorities, with disabled, with women, with men in specific services. But what's not clear, I don't think, is bringing all of that together. And I did have a conversation with Tabitha yesterday about the patient experience, patient engagement and patient relations, and how we can start to think about that as one thing, really, so that it's all in one place and it's really transparent.
Tabitha, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, just to say, I really want to thank the team that's been working on this. And I would like to thank also the patient stories and what they've said. It's really a good place for me to start from, and the work that's been sort of started on. To acknowledge all the comments that have been made, we've taken them on board and we will review where we are, and then we'll bring back our work with a timeline to board. So I just want to give that assurance that we've listened to everything that's been said, taken it on board, and we'll bring it through the governance channels, which is like the patients forum and then quality committee and then to board for assurance. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. The two key points I'm going to make were covered in that we did cover as a policy committee and agreed those points about co-creation, and particularly that reflects the diversity of our communities as well, and that needs to be really clear going forward. I did just want to note that talking about how we do that co-creation process and embed that more, later on in the agenda there's a report on the work that's done between Lancaster University and the New Hospitals Programme on reaching self-release groups and underrepresented community, and sort of recommendation perhaps there's something to be learned from that, and also that the team at the university can probably contribute as well. So thank you.
Yeah, just to build on that, again,
from my perspective, it'd be really helpful, I think, because this is a difficult task to do well. Let's be honest with all the other things we're doing. So there are many groups in different health settings, in voluntary sector groups across the economy that are already doing this. I don't know how many reports and pieces of research I found from my experience. So I think it'd be really helpful if rather than reinvent the wheel, that there's an opportunity to build in that with other pieces of research, because it will give that kind of an overview and that more general process that Chief Exec was outlining. So it's just, I think there's stuff out there basically that can be used to inform and shape the strategy and make it even better.
Thank you. Alison?
Thank you. For me, there's something around, and it's patient experience right at the very beginning of the strategy, and first point of contact. So for a lot of individuals, the first point of contact with the hospital is when they get that phone call that somebody's been injured, they've been in an accident, they've been admitted. And so for us to be able to do the basics brilliantly, and that's switchboard. So thinking about how we link in patient experience complaints, what we can learn from that, and how we can really enable people to have a smooth transition and smooth access to information as to where their loved ones potentially are within the hospital setting, opposed to the pathways that we're seeing. But it's great work. Thank you.
Colleagues, if there are other comments and views, if you could pass them on to Tata and Lynn outside of the meeting. I think you've captured the main points really. Barry, as always, thank you. It's always good to see you at the board, and yourself, Annette. Thank you, Lynn, and all the team putting this together. Good luck with it, and the board will support it going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, we'll move on to item 5, Chair's report. It's a monthly update. You have it in front of you. There's only 2 items I really need to bring out. Item 5, the 2 vacancies for 1 non-exec and 1 associate non-exec director. The interviews took place yesterday afternoon, led by our head governor. The whole process has been led by the head governor. I'd like to minute thanks to the governors that have supported this process. It will go to the Council of Governors subcommittee today, and then it will go to the full council for their thoughts. But we have got 2 candidates that we are taking forward. I won't name them because it's still subject to approval by the full council. Anything you want to say, Lorraine, on that?
No, apart from the fact that there was a very, very good defining line between the 4 candidates that came up to it. It was a 3-2 split between the 2 that actually got it. So that was how tight it was. It was 1 mark. But the 2 I think that we've chosen, and especially for each role, I think will really, really support the trust in whatever they want to do.
My second point is item 6. Just to confirm, the Council of Governors did meet on the 27th of April. I did consult with them, and it has been agreed and approved that Tony Oatman is the Senior Independent Director. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, happy to answer any questions on my report. No. Okay, colleagues, we'll move on then. Item 6, Chief Exec's report.
Thank you, Chair. So a slightly more brief report from me. Morning, colleagues. A lot of the items in my update are covered off in some detail elsewhere on the agenda, so I don't intend to duplicate those areas. There's 2 or 3 things just to highlight for the board. First, it's another thank you from me from both system partners and our colleagues, particularly over the last week or 2, as we've faced again very significant pressure resulting from the industrial action that occurred Sunday into Monday of this week. Again, the same approach that we've adopted through previous actions with care group-led mitigations and support, some increased infrastructure around the on-call arrangements and very good executive leadership. We found ourselves again coming out of the industrial action in a place where, whilst there were times when we absolutely had to use all of our mitigations, all of the risk oversight, the partner kind of engagement we'd had pre the action, but we've come through the other side okay. Everyone's safe and sane, and we'll continue to use that same methodology if such actions occur in the future. And given the current climate, it is highly likely that that will be the case. We are aware of the government announcement early yesterday morning about the full and final offer in that space. We're also aware of some of the union's reactions to that and the ballot that will follow. So we will keep the board brief on developments in that area. And again, if such action continues, the same infrastructure we've had around risk oversight, board visibility and approval or agreement of those mitigations, we will continue to do, Chair. It feels odd at the moment. We're in May the 3rd. It's month 2 of the new financial year. So a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last period since we met as a board has been to close out the year end, to agree our financial positions, which Chris will talk a little bit about later, to ratify our performance measures and the work that we committed to at the start of the year to feed up to kind of the national regional teams. I think we will spend a bit of time under the strategic review item and probably in the June board to be a bit more formal and reflective in that year and what we learned from it and what we've taken from it into this year. But I'm very, very pleased with the improvements and the performance and the commitments that we gave at the start of the year, largely haven't been delivered over, I would argue, one of the most difficult 12 months that the trust has faced on a number of levels. But we'll do that a little more formally, Chair, in the future board. We've also spent a lot of time looking at the coming year, or the year that we're in now, with the leadership team focused on making sure we can give assurance to the board of the annual and national targets that are set in the operating plans, and that we're very clear on our own stretch targets in 2 particular areas. Financial sustainability improvement, again, which Chris will talk about later on this morning, and we've got another session on that this afternoon as a board, and in particular our continuous quality improvement ambitions to move from SOC 4 to SOC 3 and SOC 2, which I'll say a bit about in a moment, but the board will see those plans developing and where our areas of focus and priority after that. We have had the CQC with us in April, board will be aware. So I think it was the 4th to the 6th of April. You're never quite prepared, as the description kind of entails. It's an unannounced inspection, but getting a phone call at 6:30 when you're in the shower as a chief exec and say that the CQC are here in 10 minutes, that's a waking her up for it, that is. Again, the CQC wanted to come in and to inspect all of the medical services at the RLI site, to inspect stroke across the pathway across both sites, and to look at maternity services across all of our sites. The reason that the CQC have come in to inspect is largely because of our ask to lift some of the conditions and the regulations that featured as a result of their inspection. This has all been part of the formal approach to our recovery support work and the SOC 4 exit criteria. So it was not because of any undue risk. There wasn't an escalation. There wasn't a prompted the inspection. It is where we are in the process of the improvement work, and their governance dictates that if we make a recommendation like that, because they came from a formal inspection, they would re-inspect. The initial feedback that the board heard was positive. They'd seen good evidence of improvement. They were well received by colleagues, and colleagues were able to articulate not only improvements made, but the areas where we still need to improve and how we plan to do that. We've had probably 2 weeks worth of high volumes of information and data requests, well serviced by the governance and leadership teams. And again, the board will be aware we have our well-led part of the inspection on the 16th, 17th and 18th of May, with a view to having a formal report which will re-rate the organisation and those core services likely later in the summer. So that's an update from CQC. Our work to satisfy the exit criteria for SOC 4 transition to SOC 3 continues. I know we've come to board before to say we've taken our final bits of evidence through the System Improvement Board, which we have done. That now follows a governance path through the region and national structures ahead of a meeting with the board on the 9th of June. And it's at that meeting where we will receive whether that recommendation to progress from SOC 4 to SOC 3 has been approved. All the work continues. It hasn't been we close that report, we'll leave it a few months, see what the feedback's like in July and then go. The board will be aware acutely that the continuous improvement continues. We brought proposals before about what the post SOC 4 exit infrastructure will look like, and we're busy developing, designing and delivering within it now. And we'll keep the board on those improvements as they progress. So that's as much as I was going to say, Chair, with 3 or 4 areas of update. And there's a lot in my report, but it does
it does get picked up in more detail as well.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief exec on this report? Steve, Anita, Sarah?
Thanks for that, Harry. It's just one issue that was in the ICB report that was attached as an appendix. I was just wondering because it talks about moving towards a single corporate services platform, and I was just wondering if at this point there were any heads up about what the implications of that might be for us as that progresses. I think it would be aware of that.
Thanks, Hugh. So that's been part of the update for the last 4 or 5 months into board with the 2 key programs of work that the provider collaborative board is sponsoring in that transformation space. So it's the clinical integration board that Martin Hodgson chairs from East Lancashire. And there are 3 or 4 clinical work streams that are progressing to a recommendation or proposal around the clinical strategy that we've agreed here before, the hub and spoke, the kind of networked model of care. The central services portfolio board is the board that I chair. We're at the point now where the SROs and the work streams have met twice in November and March in workshop form. And there is a mandate coming through the coordination group and the PCB board through April and May, which will feature obviously here as an update for the board. The governance of that is now with the joint committee, as the board are aware. We're going to do some work with the leadership team and the management group to make sure that mandate's clear. And my proposal yesterday at exec group is that we also find some space at the board in part 2 to walk through the details so the board are aware of what the recommendations are. So there'll be no surprises around the central kind of recommendation of consolidation of services as outlined in the paper, but the due process will follow through the joint committee.
Yeah, that would be useful because I get my head around the clinical services bit, particularly having seen the clinical strategy and discussed that. It's the other side that Pat just feels a little bit woolly at the moment. From our perspective, yeah.
Bring that into the process. Adrian?
Thank you, and great to hear that there are clear timescales which we can work on. So firstly, I mean, congratulations to the work that you've done, through the incident management team in managing the recent pressures and crisis. It's really good to hear that the trust has managed to deliver when it's been under such extreme pressure. So congratulations to the whole team. And also brilliant on the CQC written evidence as well. Fantastic to see it written down. Yeah. That's the important thing for me. My question was going to be about the collaborative board and the agenda, and whether there's any further consideration at this time about one of the key pressures which we've only recently left behind us, which is they're not meeting criteria to reside. And obviously that's going to emerge very quickly as we move through this year into winter pressures again. And I must admit, I was a little bit surprised to see that wasn't somewhere within the agenda, because it is an acute priority for this trust and other trusts. And as you know, we've got the new unitary to engage with, haven't we? So it feels like it should be there as a priority. Can you give us a bit of an update on that?
I can, and I might bring Scott in about some of the ambitions of the whole system flow work. So we prioritised here improving the not meeting criteria to reside homes as part of our urgent care improvement work. And we have improved through a combination of our own efforts, partners' efforts, and some additional investments. So I think we were at the heights of around 170 at the peak. I think it hovers now, Scott, around the 100 mark above and below. Yeah. So it's been a material improvement in the not meeting criteria to reside numbers, which you'll see through the performance reports and the IPR. That's partly the driver of why it's a very difficult narrative, this, but we are above the pack on the current urgent care improvement kind of performance and the 4-hour performance and ambulance handover performance, but recognise that nowhere in the country is performing particularly well around urgent care. One of the key priorities for the ICS, because obviously this is wider partners, it's place-based, etc., and the trust doesn't lead in that area. What we put forward is a proposal for the ICS to consider as part of their own transformation work out of hospital for further not meeting criteria to reside improvements. They are convening a transformation infrastructure, a recovery group, which will include a focus bringing local authorities, mental health communities and acutes together to strengthen and make more resilient the market, to improve flows and discharges. And the outcome of that will be a not meeting criteria to reside reduction. So again, it doesn't sit within our portfolio in terms of leading and delivering the work. That's very clearly now
under the mandate for ICS in place, but we will play our full part in delivering that.
Thank you. It'd be great to just keep an eye on that over the next few board meetings, just to see how that unfolds and how that's going to, produce positive impact for us as the trust in our two authorities that we're working with. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I say just a follow-up question on the not meeting criteria to reside, and then I've got another question. It's great to hear we've gone from 170 to 100. Is that because we've had the 80 funded packages and that was a shorter term, medium term measure? So just sort of understanding what the sustainability is of that going forward.
Scott's coming from
So there's partly that kind of additionality over the seasonal winter. I think the things that lead to not meeting criteria to inside are multifactorial, aren't they? So it strikes me there's maybe slightly more resilience in South Cumbria with our local authority partners in terms of workforce. There's been a very, very concerted focus. There's been a lot of manual labour behind that. And some of our processes are probably slickened up as well. So I think that there's things within us and our partners that got better. There's been some additionality, but it's important to note there's still 3.5 wards of patients that should be at home and closest to home. And 170 is an extreme number. So I think, yeah, the direct answer is partially because of that additionality. As we'll come on to later, the sustaining that or improving that further, actually, because sustaining it wouldn't be okay. So improving that, as Anne's described, there's an ICB wide piece of work emerging around urgent care in its widest sense. And then we'll embrace that way in next week, on the 5th, 2 weeks down on the 15th, are having our inaugural session with our system partners to create our whole System 4 programme, which includes the place directors from the ICB, directors of adult services from both local authorities, NWAS and others. So we intend now very clearly defining that as a piece of work between the partners.
And just in terms of the current 80 packages, do they have an end date on them?
Those are largely transitioned now and finished into, so that was a seasonal winter piece. So those are largely transitioned into business as usual arrangements with the local authority.
Okay, thank you. So my actual question was, my question I'm going to ask, sorry, was around, it's in the ICB report again, actually, so just starting to think about how we fit together in the system. In 5.4, we're talking about, again, that clinical integration and talking about potentially in the future to move to a single site model for delivery of some services. What I don't see any mention of there is actually understanding what impact that might have on patients and how we assess how we can support patients to access a single site model and ensure the care is safe and equitable.
I'll bring Jane in for the trust. I'll just answer for the system. The provider collaborative is currently having a discussion which will come up in our next agenda to form a group. It will look at an impact assessment. So when ideas come through on clinical reconfiguration or redesign, there will be a group that will take a sort of ethical, quality and impact assessment approach to that. So that will be done on behalf of the PCB. That's on our next agenda.
Okay. And so we'll receive an update on that.
Yeah, it'll come through to the board. Yeah. And hopefully we'll get somebody who's involved in that work.
Yeah, I think that'll be really important because we need that assurance about the impact on our patients.
Jane?
Yeah, absolutely. I can mirror that really with the trust. There will be some things that are regional priorities for us to look at because the services are fragile, either because they're small services or for long-standing recruitment issues, and that would be the same within the trust as well. And we'll have a process to go through for that to do all of those appropriate assessments and appropriate consultations where necessary, but fully recognising that we, like the rest of the country, have a workforce issue that means that some of our services are really very fragile, and we might, in order to keep them safe, have to think differently about how we can deliver those.
Please.
Thanks, Mike. So I was just going to make a comment, but can I just add a question into the previous conversation? And that brought when they look at the quality assessments, will they also take into account our rurality? It's not a correct word, you know what I mean, and access to transport links. So that, you know, because obviously our communities are a lot more disadvantaged, say, than those around sort of Preston, the larger conurbations.
So it's important to note, so whilst the system's been changed in place in ICSs, the core commissioning rules and responsibilities around service change, so access, consultation, outcomes, etc., they're still in place. So if there was going to be a significant proposal around service change, there is still a due process to follow, and that hasn't changed. So whenever we would have made proposals for service change in the past, nothing is different. So we just need to make sure, from my perspective, it's understanding what's in scope and by when are we going to be looking to making decisions, and then making sure as a board that we've got a clear line of sight as to what our role is within that, and getting the pipeline right, key meetings or key communications and engagement. So I just want to give that assurance that nothing shifted in terms of the due process on service change, but the pace at which that's going to develop and the scale at which that's likely to impact, given where we are, will change. So I think we need to develop, which I'll ask Jane to dovetail in, a bit of a programme of work for the next 12, 18, 24 months. So we're aware of what's coming, we start to prepare ourselves for that kind of work.
Your point about the geographical issues will be addressed by that group in the PCB. Because our catchment area is the whole of Lancashire and South Cumbria now, so we have to take that.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, can I just confirm, Aaron, because I think that's a really important point you just made, that the ICB takes on board the responsibility of the CCT in terms of leading the consultation on any of these changes?
That's correct.
Yeah.
The legal responsibility.
I think it's important to understand that it's not just about the providers doing their own things.
Sorry, Mike, the comment I was going to make was about the CQC's comment, and I think it needs acknowledging at that board. They thank the trust for being welcoming and accommodating from all staff. And I think given, you know, if you look at the context that they came in to do their inspection after the winter we've had and all the strikes and the pressures everybody's been under, that is phenomenal. So I just really wanted to put on, you know, our personal thanks for that.
I think the minute that we could get a message out yourself to chief executive to the staff to thank them and appreciate that. It is an important point. Okay, colleagues, we're happy to move on then to the governor's report.
There's just two things. First, I'd like to mention is one, we have actually asked now for the recommencement of constituency meetings, so that, you know, we found in the past that these constituency meetings do bring out a lot of the general public thinking and feeling as well. And the other thing is that I'd like to start thinking of actually integrating the NEDs to work with governors and subgroups to start making improvements to help the trust to move forward, hopefully as we're coming out of softball. And by doing that, I'm hoping that we're going to start changing the behaviour from a blame culture to how we can help to make things improve. And other than that, my report is as was read. Thank you.
Comments for the head governor?
Thank you, Lorraine, and thanks for that suggestion around how the NEDs and governors can work together. Do you have a sense of what the ask might be of NEDs around that?
No, I just think I mean, I haven't discussed it with the rest of the council really, but it's something I've had on my mind for many months, but been blocked, not by anybody in. But the thing about it is that I think that as NEDs, you have the ability to take it forward from us. But we look at this now, as it's written, is that we hold you to account. Mm-hmm. And I hate that term, because together we should work together. And if we can work together, it means that our relationship's better. But apart from that, it means all the governors can actually say, well, what are we, all of us, doing about this, instead of what are you doing about this? That culture's got to go for us to improve it and move on.
And obviously supportive of ensuring that we have that collaborative culture and that we work together to support improvement. And
we've got the building blocks then, haven't we, up to board level?
Just to build on what Lorraine just said as well, myself and Lorraine will be working with the company secretary to see whether we can bring in an annual review of the council that focuses on what is the work that councils have done that helps to improve patient safety and quality of care. So we can actually provide evidence to anybody external and say, well, this is how the council is supporting. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, colleagues, I know we've got a comfort break in 25 minutes. So I'm sure we'll be patient for these next items. Quality and safety, a progress report on Care Quality Commission, Director of Governance. Richard.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'll be as brief as I can. I say this every month, but this is a fluid piece of work. So by the time you've written it for a Quality Assurance Committee, invariably one or two more recommendations and actions have been completed, and it's no different this month. So for the benefit of the record, the scores today are 61 out of 61 must-do recommendations are complete. 47 out of 51 should-do recommendations are complete, and board will recall that each recommendation has a number of actions sat underneath it. So that means a total of 192 actions out of 192 actions out of a total of 197 have been completed. And that means there are 4 recommendations which have 5 actions in it, which we still have to complete. I think our position would have been even better, but we had to stand down a support and review panel last week, largely owing to the need to prepare for industrial action. So I think that number would be even lower today. Of those 5 should-dos that we have remaining, all have robust plans around them, and I would fully expect them to be completed within weeks rather than months. So I have no concerns to alert the board about our work with those remaining 5, and I'm happy to make sure that Paul has a record for the minutes of what those actual 5 are. And then finally, I just wanted to say, of course, with regret, that was the easy job. The more challenging job is sustaining all of that work that we've done, adding it together with the niche recommendations and making sure that that becomes a part of our bedrock and doesn't unsustain itself. So I'll be reporting through to Quality Assurance Committee how we're going to propose to do that, probably over the course of May and June, and we'll build a plan around making sure that doesn't pop itself out of the ground again. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take questions.
Yeah. Sorry, just before I know if you wanted to come in, I just want to check that the action that I proposed at the last board, which was lots of the work that we've done over the last 18 months, we articulate through the language that Richard's just used about the delivery of and criteria satisfied, rightly, because a lot of the work around check and challenge and assurance goes on in the assurance committees and the board gets the assurance on delivery. But the so what question, so what cumulative impact of either the work we've done around the CQC or niche or RSP, what difference has it made to our performance, to our quality, to our safety, to our feedback? And what I'd asked at the last board is to set up a session with the board at the end of the summer probably to do a reflective piece and for the executive to pull together some evidence that kind of articulates what is different and why. I just want to check with Paul that that action's been picked up at the last board. Perfect.
Yeah, I just want to say that the Quality Committee did interrogate those outstanding actions, and Richard assured us, and we were assured that there wasn't any risk to patient safety. And I think the development, I think the 5 what we in this paper talk about the move to the transformation and improvement board going forward is going to be really important, and I think that probably ties into the piece that Aaron's just mentioned that we look at in the summer, that we will actually be able to start to see that starting to work, and we'll have an opportunity to get a sense of whether it is delivering what we want it to deliver, because I think over the next few months that's going to be absolutely key. And we've seen 1 or 2, it's a bit, but when we were talking about patient experience strategy, there are pockets of this happening already, and it's looking to see that those pockets actually then develop and move forward in terms of becoming wider and more into the way we do things. So I think that those two, it's a good way those two, that new development and that review can come together. So we were comfortable with where this was going, but with, I think that's important caveat, let's have a good look at how it's going in a few months.
Thank you. Take that as an assurance comment there. Thanks, Richard. And we take on board your comment there, you know, that I know you said it in a half joking way, the easy work's been done. We recognise the enormous task that's been facing our colleagues across the trust to get to where we are now. But this tricky bit, as the chief exec has outlined, the objective is to get to SOC 2, to give the best quality care and safe care that we can to our patients and service users. And we're in that really tricky bit now of embedding everything and building on that and enhancing the care that we've got. Really, as a tribute to the commitment that everybody's shown to get to the trust where it is today, we need to really show our thanks to them by saying, now we move on and embed that and ensure that the quality continues to take it to SOC 2. Aaron?
Thank you, Mike. I think my question is on a similar theme, and it may be covered off in the session that Aaron's just highlighted. So absolutely fantastic sustained work to get to this position, and I'm thinking about those 197 actions that will all shortly be all completed, and really wondering how assured can we be that those 197 are all robustly embedded, or are some more fragile than others? And how will we know which ones we can be really sure are confidently embedded and sustained, and which ones may be more fragile? And what would our early warning signs be, so that as a board we are cited proactively before things wobble? What will that process be, and how can we be assured that's really functioning in the way that we need it to?
Before I bring Richard in, and I'll ask him to confirm this, many of your questions there will be answered through the process of taking the 197 through the quality committee. That will be the process that we will ensure that we revisit to ensure it's in bed. Richard, have I missed anything?
I wouldn't say missed, Chair. I think the one addition I would mention to that is that we would look to deliberately link all of the must-dos and should-dos where there is a risk of fragility into our clinical audit programme, so that you can pick them up through that cycle as well.
Early warning signs.
Yeah.
It's just a reflection with of a previous kind of period here, where I think the answer would have been deep dive reports, we'll bring regular updates to the quality committee, there'll be a dashboard, and I'm not going to suggest that. In fact, I'm going to suggest the absolute opposite of that. So we've spent more than a year developing really good quality QGAF, performance assurance framework, risk infrastructure, and IPR. That is the infrastructure which will give assurance, escalation, early warning. So I'm going to advise strongly, particularly into the quality committee, not to be asking for anything out with that infrastructure, because if we think there's something missing, then we need to go back and have a look at the structure we've just established. Now, obviously, if things start to flash and go on, reserve the right as chairs of committees to look into that with some detail. But I'd be advising us not to eat up resource with speculative or outside with the structures that we've put in place, because it's important that we retain that integrity and focus.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, Sarah?
Thank you. And I think I was just going to add to that. I think the point about it being incorporated into the clinical audit programme is really important. I know we've been discussing as part of the audit committee what the internal audit programme looks like as well, and part of that will
BAU, that's what
so I'm certainly looking to that to help provide that assurance as well.
And the BAU, business as usual, sorry, as the chief executive just said, it's moving out of this transition really of SOC 4 into SOC 3 and then heading towards SOC 2, that we've got to get an overview of assurance processes that isn't reactive really. But yeah, Liz?
Thanks. For me, what I'm looking forward to seeing through this next 12 months is the coming to the fore as they become more and more established, is the performance reviews, the regular performance reviews with the care groups, and where I think we will start to see a lot of these things. If things are going slightly off track, they'll start being highlighted through that process, as the care groups have a a greater understanding and control and dialogue with their services, and that is then fed up to TNG and then to the trust board.
Agree, I think, yeah, we all agree with that. Honestly, it's a good point. Okay, colleagues, we take then an update report, we note the report and the actions that we take and the assurance processes to follow. Richard, thank you. We welcome Heather Gallagher. Are you there, Heather?
Morning.
Hi, Heather. Welcome to our monthly updates on maternity safety, the avoiding term admission into neonatal units, and the neonatal workforce update. 3 separate items. I'll pass the floor over to you, Lynn.
Are you happy to take the reports, please?
Thank you. So the first paper, maternity update, I'll take the paper as read and just draw attention to the key points. So the perinatal surveillance model is available in the board reference pack. You'll notice there's a slight drop in doctors' compliance against mandatory training, and that's in direct response to strike action. So there is trajectories on getting that back onto the required compliance level. The workforce midwifery review is in draft and it's been returned to the regional team following factual accuracy. So hopefully that will be progressed probably within the next 2 weeks. Helm Chase is still suspended for births at the moment, and this is due to the risk of Entonox overexposure due to poor ventilation at Helm Chase. We're working with the Entonox working group to look at sourcing low-level ventilation. The self-monitoring exposure badges has arrived, so we're just finalising the SOP. As soon as the SOP's been approved and ratified, we will be able to recommence Entonox being available for home births. Helm Chase will take a little bit longer as we source the low-level ventilation machines. The 3-year delivery plan for maternity and neonatal services was published on the 30th of March. You'll see within the paper I've put a small summary around what the delivery plan's recommending, and we will follow that up with a full action plan working with the local maternity and neonatal system. And just to note, the MVP chair has resigned, and we're actively working with the LMS in terms of trying to get a replacement chair. She doesn't step down until the end of August, so we've got a little bit of time. Happy to. Yeah.
Interrupt. Just explain very quickly the word MVP and the LMS, just for colleagues who are observing the board from the public. Just what do those letters mean?
So the LMS is the local maternity and neonatal system. So that's us as a collective of providers of maternity services, and ICB leads in terms of maternity and neonatal services. So we work as a collective system in terms of delivering and improving services for women and babies. The Maternity Voices Partnership is our service user representation, and they help us design, co-produce all our maternity services in terms of business as usual and quality improvement as well, but making sure that the service user voice is very, very much central to everything that we do.
Thank you. Just if we use any acronyms, just if we can use full words, colleagues. Well, back to you, Heather. Sorry, I interrupted your flow then.
No, so I'm happy to take any questions about that particular paper before I move on to Attain.
And we've got one here, Sarah.
Hi, Heather. You probably know what questions we're going to put actually with Lynn. I'm looking at the MSSP matrix on page 68. Really good. I'm going to start with really good to see on key issues 2 and 3 that we've got good consistently since August. That's fantastic. It'd be lovely to see when that gets to green. I don't know what it takes to become green. My concern is that leadership one, which is staying little, and I know that the action that you and Lynn are taking is to talk to the regional team or national team to understand what we need to do to demonstrate good, and it's just a timeline thing about when that could happen. So hopefully you've now met them. I wondered if we could have an update on it.
We have, I mean, Karen might want to add to anything I say, and Heather. So we did meet the MSFP team. They acknowledge that this isn't an appropriate way to report, and they can't really explain the grading themselves. So they did take an action to go away and relook at how they report that progress through. But obviously, it won't just affect our trust; it'll affect other trusts. So it'll be a national thing. But they were very sort of honest and open and supportive about looking at a different way of monitoring. I don't know whether Karen, you want to add something to that.
Karen, just let me interrupt you to just say what MSFP is.
Maternity, Heather, just tell me what MSFP is.
Maternity Safety Support Programme.
Okay, Karen.
Yes, thank you. Yes, just to add a couple of points. It was a really really productive candid meeting with the MSSP Maternity Safety Support Programme colleagues. Heather, Lynn and I met them last Wednesday morning, and really the recognition was that we are making progress in terms of leadership, and actually that the progress that we're making with strategy and vision, governance and safety couldn't actually be made without effective leadership. This is very much about fine-tuning the if you like, the indicators that sit around the difference between good and little. And whereas some of the indicators around strategy and vision, governance and safety are more quantitative, more easily criterion referenced, that's much more tricky and nuanced with leadership. So that was the focus of the conversation. And then working with Lynn and Heather and Tabitha. Now we planned to have a further discussion in order to really fine-tune the matrix so that it can more appropriately reflect the progress that's been made.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Heather. Heather, just wanted to ask about it's brought out in item 24 of your report about the temporary closure of Helm Chase, and you go on to talk about the issues in maintaining freestanding maternity-led care for women. And I know this is an issue across the whole of the Northwest. Is this a provision that's going to, because of the lack of midwives that we have across nationally, that is a service that's going to be under pressure, and is there still a demand for that service?
I think probably what we've seen is a drop in numbers in terms of women wanting to access freestanding maternity services, and some of that can be put down to a strike action around NWAS. So it's really difficult to choose a midwifery-led environment if you're then going to struggle to get an ambulance to come into hospital, because the transfer-in rate is reasonably high, particularly in first-time mums. So I think events over the sort of last couple of years have impacted on midwifery led. Now, as we look across the region, what we've really noticed is there's a real lack of midwifery led care, particularly in rural settings. So we're working with the regional teams in what does that service look like. For example, if I use Penrith Birth Centre opens 2 days a week, which in terms of consistency for service for women looking for freestanding birth centres, that there is an issue in terms of rural services. So we are looking with other providers in terms of how do we make that offer sustainable for women.
Okay. Hey, colleagues, you're comfortable with accepting the maternity safety update? We'll move on then to 9.2, Heather, the rewarding term admission into neonatal units, the ATTAIN report. Again, you submitted the report, and assuming colleagues have read it, the recommendation to the board is to take the recommendations from the report. So it'd probably be wise if we just go straight to those main points. That's points 21, 22 and 23 of your report.
Sorry, just let me get that up. Yeah, so the highlight of the report really is that we have a term admission rate to special care and NICU, which is below the national target of 6%. So for FGH, it's between 4.3 and 4.5%, and RLI it is 4.5%. We aren't compliant with the BAPM standard for transitional care, which board will remember we submitted non-compliance for in maternity incentive scheme year 4 safety action 3, and we submitted an action plan to NHS resolution for additional funding to help pump prime that BAPM compliant nursing standard. Now we have received confirmation that we have been successful in obtaining that funding, but we're yet to understand what amount that actually is. So they're just the points that I'd like to draw the board's attention to.
And BAPM stands for?
It's oh, now you're asking me. British. It's a neonatal staffing. Forgive me, I would have to actually look it up. Perinatal medicine, British Association of Perinatal Medicine.
Brilliant curve in there. Well,
I was trying to desperately remember it. Thank you.
well, I was conscious that this is a board held in public, and I am aware that members of the public will be observing us. So, you know, we may be familiar with these acronyms.
I've seen a board look to Google so quickly, Chair.
I have to congratulate you, Heather. That was a wonderful term. So, what do you wish the board to do?
Just to note the report, please.
Okay. Aaron?
Thank you, and thanks, Heather. And it's really good to see the comprehensive action plans and the time referencing included with the report, so that we can really see completion. Just one question, and it may be too early, it may come in next month's board report. Just on pages 85, 86, I can see some of the target dates for some of those actions was the end of April. I just wondered whether you're able to give us a hot off the press update on whether we're on track with those.
Yeah, so the action around the education for staff and raising awareness, yes. In terms of we're working towards the implementation of neonatal badger as well, which will help the TC process. The only action that has probably got a slight slippage is the workforce review, and that is simply because obviously we've got Elaine joining us as the new Associate Director of Nursing and Midwifery for the Wax Care Group, who's got a neonatal background. So she wishes to do the workforce review and oversee that. So there'll probably be a few weeks slippage while we work on that with her. So she's got full oversight of it moving forward.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, we're happy then to accept the report and note it. Thanks, Heather. 9.3 then, the neonatal workforce update.
Yeah, so this neonatal workforce paper is on behalf of the Wax Care Group. It's around the requirements for CNST to report on medical and nursing workforce in relation to neonatal services. So you'll see in the paper that FGH is compliant with the standards in alignment with being a special care baby unit. RLI is non-compliant with the standards in terms of a neonatal local service, and that's due to no dedicated junior doctor being after 5 or weekends. You'll see the mitigations listed in the paper, and it does require a rota move from 1 in 8 to 1 in 12, and the care group have submitted a pre-business case in order to become compliant with those neonatal medical workforce standards.
Thank you. The recommendations is we're asked to receive the report and also take into account those mitigations that you just outlined. I'll just check. Holly, Alison.
Thank you. I noticed for option 2 that the 4 extra docs, we've got a cost pressure there of over £200,000. I was just wondering whether any consideration has been for any reduction in CNST premiums or payments out or adverse outcomes, that if we have these additional staff,
the aspiration would be that we reduce the adverse effect.
CNSP.
That's like,
I'd work for the minute take of this, but yeah. thanks.
To try and offset some of that, I know it's difficult to articulate what you're not spending if the claims haven't come in.
Jeff, so this is, well, it has been part of our strategy long term around performance improvement, quality improvement. Our CNS premiums are high, particularly maternity. Very difficult to draw cause and effect.
Yeah.
You know, like if you get an extra year on your drive and you know you come down by an extra percentage, or if you avoid certain things. So I'm not sure. So yes, that features as a narrative that can push into these areas. Could we see reduction in premiums? But I'll be guided by others as to whether there's a cause and effect matrix that tells us what the percentage reduction will be in any year given the improvements we make. I'm not aware that we've got that line of sight. Richard?
It's a theory that would happen. However, there isn't any exact modelling. There's certainly briefs that you can get from the NHS resolution authority that could help with that. But I think the important thing to remember is even if that were factually proven, the return on that would not be for some financial years later because of the length of time that claims take to progress through their process. And there's I think it's a 21-year hold that people can bring a claim. So you might make a change today around your staffing levels, but you might not see the effect of that for some time. That would then be dissipated by the fact that those claims could take 21 years to mature.
Chris?
The trust got a really clear process for the management support of the business cases like this, because I have said that's been submitted. There's a group of people that will get alongside and support the care group in components of that, how it gets factored into the financial plan. So I think we just need to let that process conclude to its output. If there is any issue, get referred straight to TMG.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
Just to ask them, what's the timeline for that process to run its course? Because I know Heather's actually been flagging this for a little while, along with the transitional care gap as well.
The IPG meets frequently. I won't say weekly because I'm not completely confident that's right. It meets frequently, reports minimum monthly to TMG. So I'm not aware of a hold up. If there is one, then I would make those inquiries.
Okay, thank you.
Just to say, I appreciate the paper is written at pre-business case stage, but some of that might also get flushed out for when we do the quality impact assessment and the equality impact assessment.
Okay.
And then just briefly, not to minimise the impact, but obviously this is a significant financial additional burden perhaps for the organisation, but not to minimise the impact on families if they get an adverse outcome during childbirth. It's lifelong.
Thank you. Okay, we note the paper. Colleagues, thank you. We'll have a 10-minute break now, if that's okay. I'll make it at 10:20. If we come back for 10:30. Going to just check just so we disconnected